How's it going? I'm Hunter from Over Yonder, and today I wanted to briefly talk about something to be aware of if you have a new model Uberti 1873 Cattleman revolver. There are a few differences between the new model and the old model, and I happen to have both here. On this new model, the retaining base pin mechanism looks like this. Essentially, it is a screw and a spring and a threaded nut on the other side that keeps the base pin in place. When you depress this side, it allows you to remove the base pin and then the cylinder. The old model has just a single screw that keeps the pin in. Now these differences are important, but we'll come back to that later. The shapes of the ejector plunger grips are slightly different, with the new model having a more oval shape versus a round one with a hole on the old model. The firing pin in this is free floating until you pull the trigger, making it rigid. The firing pin won't be able to strike a primer unless the trigger is depressed the whole time the hammer falls. I imagine the reason for this is for safety, in case someone were to carry on a loaded chamber. If that hammer were to slip or fall uncommanded or somehow be struck, that firing pin wouldn't be rigid enough to set off the primer. The new model, however, you can see that the firing pin at rest is peeking through the other side of this hole. You would not want to carry on a loaded chamber with this one, which is why in cowboy action shooting you only ever load 5 rounds and rest the hammer on the empty one. Another difference is that on this, you get the famous 4 clicks, which there's a saying that those 4 clicks spell out COLT, being that this is a reproduction of the Colt model. I'm sure there are some other small differences, and the people in the comments will definitely let me know, but those are the most obvious ones that I have found. So after going over those differences, to those who have the new models with this retaining pin mechanism, a word of warning to you. I competed with this pistol about 8 times so far, and have had 0 issues, but after my last match I came home, and as I was about to start cleaning, I noticed this whole mechanism was just gone. There was nothing but this hole here. The missing parts were threaded into each other, and I guess just over time they spun themselves out and fell off. I have no idea when this happened, and I'm surprised the base pin stayed in where it was. So luckily Taylor's & Company has a roster of spare parts you can order, so I just got some replacements. The mechanism is just 3 parts, and all you have to do to assemble is just place the spring on the screw like so, feed it through the hole, and screw the nut down on the other side. Now let's see it on the pistol. So when you do this, you want to make sure that the nut goes on the same side as the loading gate, and the screw and spring goes on the other. I could put some Loctite on this to make sure that it doesn't work itself back out again, but I think it'd just be easier if I just make sure to tighten it back every now and then. While on the frame, this mechanism retains the base pin by holding it in place in this notch. When the screw is pressed, it gives way for the base pin to slide out. That first notch there is an added safety that keeps the hammer pushed back. And so now on the frame, it looks like everything's working as intended, and now to insert the base pin. It's a pretty tight fit trying to get it to fit through that hole and the cylinder, so you might have to use a little oomph here. So this is how much of that base pin should be exposed when it's properly seated. So the message for this video is if you have a new model Uberti Cattleman, just beware you could lose your retention screws if they're not tightened down all the way. Well, that does it for this video. I'm Hunter from Over Yonder, and I will see you in the next one.